The stadium may be gone. The memories still live on here at the old George Tetter Stadium here on Payne Avenue in North Tonawanda. Hi, I'm Ed Helinski with the North Tonawanda Football Hall of Fame YouTube channel. Got another terrific guest today, this one being a legendary assistant coach, George Tetter. Coach George Tetter, welcome to the North Tonawanda Football Hall of Fame. You've been here from the very beginning. It's probably been quite a long time since you've been back.
A lot of water under the bridge.
A lot of water under the bridge. You were here from the very beginning when they began the Hall of Fame in 1967.
Yes.
You became a Hall of Famer in 1968.
Yeah.
You were a terrific player in North Tonawanda history and then went on to Colgate. But then you were a terrific assistant coach for so many years in the North Tonawanda program.
Well, I don't know about all the adjectives you're using for me. I was one of the gang, but I had the good fortune to be playing with a lot of very good men in high school. Most of those fellows are gone now. In fact, I'd venture to say they're all gone, but many of them went on to college. And we were a bunch of experienced, intelligent guys. That's all I can say about that. And I don't think that year was a great chore in coaching for George Tetter and his staff, because we were so experienced. All he had to do was show up at the sideline, and we pretty much ran the game ourselves.
How was it growing up in North Tonawanda when you were a boy?
Well, it's there's a line that goes back to the date of my birth, where in 1929, and there was still a hangover from the old days. Hangover is a good term there too, because it was a really hot spot from the old days, the old lumberjack days. I've heard somewhere that at one point in history, the river along all the way along from Buffalo north of there to Niagara Falls, it was all lumber. The lumber was stacked up all the way along the river, and supposedly that was the greatest river lumber port in the world for a river port. And there were many bar rooms and all kinds of factories. And if you were here and you were out of work and you wanted to work, it was a dream for anybody to do that, because there were all kinds of business, all kinds of people were needed for the running of the two cities. And one of the less attractive items was the city of Tonawanda. I don't know how many people remember this. As you cross the lift bridge, the Batt School Bridge, there, where ran over the end of the canal. That was really the end of the canal, not at Buffalo. And there was a wide open traffic area, and right in the middle of it was a standing structure, which was a red light, traffic light. And every time it changed the lights, there was a whistle. The thing whistled, and then the lights would change. And it had to be 100 feet across, you know. But then, if you went to that point in the city of Tonawanda and took a right-hand turn, before you knew it, you were in, believe it or not, the city dump. The city dump was right down the road there.
As a boy, what type of sports were you active in? What were you playing?
What was I playing?
What were you playing? Yes, as a boy growing up in North Tonawanda. Was it football, baseball, basketball, or any other activity?
I grew up with a family that was really not a family, right? And my mother was a single mother, and my sister came along later, and we didn't have much, believe me, in the 30s. We didn't die of starvation, but we didn't have all the luxuries of life. We didn't even have a telephone. A car, out of the question. You know, we didn't have that. We had one radio, one of those old R-type radios from that you would play from the shelf. And we had our Webster Street gang. They were, when you say gang, not bad kids. They were good kids. But looking back, I cannot remember a single kid who was fat. You know, in those days, when you went to the dinner table or wherever you were eating, if you didn't eat what was in front of you, you didn't get anything. You know we had 5-cent cones, ice cream cones, 10-cent comic books, Saturday afternoon matinee at the Riviera. It's a Riviera, but everybody calls it the Riviera. And swimming, we swam in the canal and the river. Jones's Slip over on the little island there. And we also went down along by bike, usually along where the marina is. What is it? Dick Boys? Marina.
Smith Boys.
Rich, okay. And that was pretty much our daily wage.
How did you get involved in playing football in North Tonawanda?
Well, we didn't, going back to the time when we had our group, our collective group, we did not play football really in this as an organized game. As an adjunct to that, at nighttime when we got together in the park, we played what's called funny ball. You got an old ball of any type, threw it up in the air, and all the guys would converge, and whoever got it, he was the object of the attack by everybody. But all right, then I can recall. No, I can't recall where, if I had to pinpoint exactly how my interest in football started. But I was a friend with Bob Schweigler and some other fellows at that time, and they were going out for ninth grade football. So I decided to. And I can remember asking Bob, I said, I don't know anything about football. What do I do? How do I play? And Bob looked at me and said, well, you look to be a quarterback. Why he said that, I don't know, because I was just a little, 140 pounds. And they did have a ninth grade team. We played on the empty lot across from the old high school. And it was full of rocks and bones and broken glass and everything else. But it gave me something, it gave me a goal. And I could see, even as young as I was, I could see at that point that you're not going to do anything unless you work, unless you work for it. So, excuse me. So I could see that the success meant that you had to bust your back for it. You had to compete with the other guys. We never had a football to play with per se prior to school. Excuse me.
What was that ninth grade experience like for you?
It was a bare bones situation. None of there were a couple of kids that had their own equipment and they used those. Most of us did not. We had nothing. I don't remember even having. I know I never had a football helmet. The school did not provide a lot of things in those days. Not like today, not at all. The helmet I had, if you put it on and you tighten it up, I could spin it on my head. In fact, to this day, I've got a cauliflower ear from using poor equipment, you know. Anyway, when after ninth grade, my ambition was to get into varsity, which meant a step into the junior varsity. Now, I don't recall how strong the junior varsity program was. I can't remember much about that, but I think there was this kind of a conglomeration, and I worked hard enough. I was athletic enough, you know, my reactions and so forth, and that I could handle my own. And I was learning at ground zero. You know, I don't recall ever. No, we did. I did on occasion go to a football game, but not. I wasn't a fanatic, not like it is today. And Coach Tetter was still in the Army at that point when I was a 10th grader, and Al McGlisco and Laurie Castiglione and Doc Rogo were the coaching staff. Anyway, I worked hard enough to be placed on the squad, a number, and in fact, I worked hard enough to get a block NT, which I cherish. It's in my car right now, but as I say, I worked hard enough to be on the squad, and I did get in a couple of games as a youngster, probably one of the younger guys to play, get in an actual game. But I can remember the first night. It was a night game. I don't remember the team, but I remember hearing Doc Rogo, who was the head coach at that point, calling Tetter. I was amazed that I was going to be put in, and I put my helmet on and so forth, and I trotted out to the field, and I was on air, on cloud nine, the whole. I can still remember that, and the smell of the grass and so forth, the band playing, and people cheering, which they don't do much now. Much cheering. There were no boom boxes. You know, people walking around with a boom box on the shoulder like they do now. But after that, the time went on, and I made a starting team as time went on, and at one point, I think it was probably after at the end of my last season, Doc Rogo approached me and said that I might have a possibility of getting a scholarship. And of course, that amazed me. I didn't think I was that great. Plus, everybody else was experienced. I was not. But anyway, he told me if my scholarly were good enough, I could make it somewhere. And so I went to the guidance counselor, and they said, well, your grades are all right. They weren't terrific, because I was waiting, and I got to backtrack a little bit here. At that point, I was about 16 years old, And I couldn't wait to get out of school to get a job. That was every kid's goal. You know, you graduate, get yourself a job somewhere, buy a house, etc. But anyway, the outcome of the visit to the guidance people was that my grades were all right to get accepted somewhere. However, I needed foreign language. So pursuing that, why, I don't know, but I chose German. And in order to fulfill the requirements, I had to start German 1 in my last semester. And then second semester, I went into the second part of German 2. So I did 2 years in 1. And I'm gonna brag a little bit, I got a 96 on the Regents.
You still remember it after all these years?
Oh, yeah. Am I gonna forget her name? It's a German teacher, lady, I can't remember her name now.
But you became a German teacher and taught German in the North Tonawanda system.
You what?
You taught German in the North as a teacher for many, many years.
Yeah.
For those of you who had you as a German teacher, what would you say to them in German right now?
Hard to say.
Give me something in German that you could say.
Well, immer mit der Arbeit, stick with the work. That's about it.
You ended up getting a scholarship to Colgate.
Yeah.
You did all right for yourself, and probably, got your education and probably your teaching degree at Colgate as well too.
Yeah.
What made you want to come back and teach in North Tonawanda as opposed to any place else that you could have gone to?
I can't recall at what point. I did other things before starting to teach, but it was always in the back of my mind that that would be a great job to have, to be a teacher. And at first I had a little stint with the Chevy plant in the town of Tonawanda, the old Chevy plant, working in the time office, which was a training program. But to me, working with the figures, I was good at math. I had good grades in math, but timekeeping for the employees and that sort of thing, it was just far too dull for me. And at one point, I took my vacation, and it was just a short time. And when I came back, the boss said, "George, come here, I want to show you something." And he got out this huge ledger. I'm not exaggerating, it was that thick. And he flopped it open with a bang. He said, I want to start you training in this. And I said, "Excuse me, Dick, I have to tell you right now, I'm giving you 2 weeks notice." And I couldn't, there's no way I could have continued there. And after that, I had a stint at the Wawrzynek plant in the receiving and shipping department, but there was only a fill-in. And then I decided to try naval air. So I knew of the Naval Air Station down in Pensacola, and I signed up for that, and I was accepted, and I got all the way through the pre-flight. But then I found out I had a problem with something in the ear, because if we went into a loop or a sharp turn like that, it took me a while to get my bearings, and so I said that's the end of that. I just couldn't be a flyer, especially out at sea, on an aircraft carrier. And so then when you drop out of a program like that, you're put into the whole mix. So I was just an enlisted man for a while, and then I decided, when I got out, I was on the Midway, USS Midway, which never saw action. It was all in the Atlantic. And after I got out of that, I took a job in a research and development program, and I got bored with that job too. And I used to drive down along the river to go to work every time. I said, there's got to be something better. So I decided teaching. So I took an interview with Dr. Fryatt and Abraham Culture was his assistant. I knew they needed people, they needed teachers. So with no experience in teaching education, I went in, but I had pretty good grades, especially all A's in German, and they were looking for a German teacher. So at the end of the conversation with those two gentlemen who were running the show, I said, well, you can. Do you think you can handle this? Oh no, what it was, but they said, if you were given this job, could you handle the student newspaper? You know, they're always looking for people to do jobs like that. And I said, well, I don't know if I could handle this job. And Abe Kutcher, who was the assistant superintendent, said, frankly, I don't think you're gonna be here you wouldn't be here for Christmas time. Because some teachers do drop out because they can't handle it. You know, and well, that got my dander up. And I didn't like him saying that I couldn't do it. But anyway, that was a step into teaching.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Once you became a teacher, when did you get into football coaching?
Well, George Tetter was looking for people to help coach. He had recently returned, and he was looking for people to coach. And of course, I played all those years and all those games for him. He knew who I was, and he knew I was I'll use the word diligent person. And he asked me if I wanted to do it. I said, well, yeah, sure, I'll do it. I think the salary for that was $400 a year, which of course was not much money. As a matter of fact, at that point, starting teaching, I took I think a $600 annual cut from where I was working, and I think the starting salary was $4,809, I think, $4,800 to start, and with the promise of maybe more coming.
What did Coach Tetter have you doing as what was your position as an assistant?
He was head coach.
Right.
And I was assistant line coach. I worked with Al McClisco, usually. Did you know Al?
No, but we spoke to his family, and we did one of these conversations as well too. I never had the pleasure or the opportunity to meet Al. On that staff, was Doc Rogow still on that staff?
Who?
Doc Rogow, was he still on that staff? Rogo, was he still on that staff with you?
Yeah.
Who else might have been there in that coaching tree at that point?
At first outset there was Lori Castiglione and a fellow, a huge guy, former football player, Frank Burst. B-E-R-S-T was his name, and he had muscles that he didn't always use, you know. But I think he was a walk-on for the Bills, but I don't think he ever made it. but he was a big guy. He's one of these 6'5" and 250 pounds, all muscle.
What was the experience like coaching alongside Coach Tetter all those years?
Hard to make a judgment on that, because I was learning too. I was learning points of coaching too, but I think the thing that got me, gave me any success, if there was that I liked the kids that we worked with, and I gave them a lot of respect, and I expected respect back from them, and they knew it. That first year, I remember one of the conditions was that if I had a kid out on the squad and he was not an athletic type, or was underperforming, so to speak, you should cut him. Well, I think I cut 2 kids that first year I coached, and that was one of the regrets of my life, because until, what the heck, the kid's out here, he's willing to work, he's willing to be one of the gang. Why didn't I give him a chance? So that was one of my regrets.
What were some of the things you learned from Coach Tetter?
Well, there were many things I could have, but organization, and keeping a notebook and so forth, that probably should have been my aim, but I regret to say it wasn't. And I know, just a relationship with the kids, that I could see that he had respect for the squad, and he knew what he wanted, and he got it out of him. And I tried to do as much a job as much that way as he did. So.
Being on Coach Tetter's staff, were there schools that you took maybe more seriously than other schools? Maybe a Kenmore West or Kenmore or Tonawanda or Niagara Falls?
In terms of playing?
Yes, in terms of playing.
Yeah, of course, it's always a Tonawanda game. That was a biggie. And the Kenmore schools, especially with Dick Offenheimer. And ironically, when I went to Colgate, Dick Offenheimer was the coach there. So, and we had, I think, we had a good team. We were probably, I think, 5-1 or 6-1, something like that. I remember Cornell beat us, and then in the last game, in those days, Colgate, Syracuse, they were 2 big rivals. Today, that's not the case. But we played Army plebes, and we beat them, and a number of others, including Syracuse. Syracuse was the final game, and we played that on their grounds. And he named me captain for that team, and I was amazed that he would do that. But I'm going to do a little bragging here. I had the best game I ever played was that game, and he gave me the game ball afterward. And I hate to talk about myself, because I never consider myself that worthy of it. But then a negative point on that, I had the team sign their names on the football, and a couple of weeks later, I had it stored in my room. I rode with 3 other guys at Colgate. Somebody stole it from the room. You know, and I often wondered, what the heck? Who would steal somebody else's trophy? You know, what are you gaining by that? But I had an idea who did it, but no proof.
I want to ask you about your coaching style. at North Tonawanda. How would you describe yourself as a coach? Were you a taskmaster? Were you hard-nosed? Were you old school? What's the best way to describe your coaching style?
I was not a demanding type guy. I don't think. I knew what I wanted them to do, and the physical part of it was important to me. I made sure they did that they worked sort of on the calisthenics and all that sort of thing, wind sprints. Everybody hates wind sprints, but you gotta do them. And I'd say I was easygoing. I was not a hard taskmaster at all.
I got to ask you something. You coached a lot of linemen, offensive and defensive linemen, and guys who went probably both ways. Who might be the best lineman you ever coached?
That's a tough one.
Or give me a few. It doesn't have to be just one, but give me a few.
Yeah, there were a number of my best team, but we had a good team one year. In fact, at the end of the season, there was a traditional game between the ninth grade and junior varsity, and played under the lights at the school, and we beat the junior varsity. That was a feather in my cap. But I see these faces coming back to me, but I can't put names to a lot of them. There's a boy named Bowman who was killed in Vietnam. That of course was much later. And Freddie Wawrzynek he played quarterback because he's a smart kid. And then the Rosenau brothers, you wouldn't find two tougher high school kids than those two. They played both ways. We all did, up to a point.
How about Stan Andrzejewski?
Who?
Stan Andrzejewski.
Yeah, he was unique. he was a good sized kid. That helped him, and I think he liked the game better than he would have admitted. But yeah, he was a good one.
I want to ask you about some other people. I made a list, and tell me what you recall of them or what stands out. First one, Doc Rogow.
Doc Rogow. First memory I have of him was right in the field right over here, because I went to Goundry School, the second grade, and the school building was right here. And I can remember we played something with a soccer ball, some kind of soccer game, and we chose up sides, and there was scoring to be done in it, and Doc was out there with us, and at the very end of the game we scored and won the game. And one of my teammates, we were just little kids, you know, one of my teammates said, "We won!" And Doc pulled him aside. He said, "Don't brag, you know, be respectful to your opponents all the time." And that always stuck with me.
I want to ask you about Al McGliscu.
Al, yeah, he was, I would say he was easygoing too. And he spent a lot of time with me, teaching.
Learned a lot from him?
Yeah, the little things that linemen do, some good, some bad, you know, some not so pleasant. But,
how about John Pluak?
yeah, John, I always respected John for his size. I wasn't much bigger, but John was just a little guy, and he played college football, and a laugh a minute with him. You know, but he was serious-minded with the football. But he's always ready for a laugh. You know, good man, John.
Nick Seebeck.
Nick was an ex-pro. He played for
Washington.
Washington. But before that, he played for the New York. What the hell did they call them? The New York. It was the old, I think, American Conference or something like that. And but it didn't last. And then he went to Indiana. He played at Indiana. I think he was a starter there. He played quarterback.
How was it to coach with Nick?
He was very knowledgeable. He was good with the defensive part of it.
John Chisera.
John was probably one of the hardest running backs I ever saw. And I didn't actually coach with him. In fact, I don't remember him coaching. But I had not been advanced to the varsity when he was in his last year, but I saw him play a lot. And I can remember being, I was supposed to be scouting up in a tower on the sideline. And I was watching the game from up there, and I could, the play was coming around the right-hand side, and John Chisera broke free, and he was running down the sideline, and there was a kid who was a safety man for the other team. He was the only one with a chance to catch him, and he was going to tackle John, and all of a sudden he did a 180-degree turn away from him. He wanted no part of it because he ran like a bull, you know.
How about Dave Anastasi? You coached briefly with Dave under Chuck Ramsey's.
I coached Joe. He and I both were linemen with Ramsey, Chuck Ramsey. But my role had declined at that point, and after 15 years, I gave it up.
Chuck Williams.
Chuck was a diligent guy too. He worked with me for 1 year with the 9th grade, I think, and then Vetter took him up to help coach him. And he was a book man. He had piles of notes that he took. And he passed on recently, I think.
A couple of years ago, yes. George Tetter.
Well, I never had a father, so this is stretching a bit, but he's as close as he would have come to being somebody I could look up to. So, and I spent some time at his home with him, visiting, and a couple of coaching clinics. And when I first started anything at all with the North Tonawanda football, he was kind of a legend even at that time, because he had started in the 30s and was very successful.
We've talked about several things in this conversation. What would you like to talk about that I didn't bring up?
I would say the decline of the value of a football team for a school. Now that sounds like too much cheerleading, you know, but nonetheless, my feeling is that a good sports team, of course, would be my view would be football. It helps unite a group of school kids, but sadly, go back to the time when I first started. On Friday night football, the stands were usually jammed. There were a couple thousand at least every night. And it seems a lot of people knew the cheers and the songs and so forth. And it was all part of the whole program. The recognition of the importance of the team players, and not everybody was an All-American, of course, but there were the football heroes, you know. So, yeah, I could see it declining over the years, and that was a little bit of a disappointment. I don't know what it is now. In fact, I hate to say this, but I don't even know who's the coach is now.
What piece of advice would you give to today's athlete, today's football player?
Well, stick with the rules, and don't come off the field unless your face is full of sweat. And I don't know, just a respect for others, and avoid as much as possible the grandstanding and the hot dogging that you see so much today. You know, like, for example, especially in the pros, you've seen time after time a defensive down man, for example, or a defensive end. He'll make a break and he'll nail the quarterback or nail a running back, and a hand was laid on him, you know, the defensive lineman, and then they'll strut around the field and beat their chest, you know. But nobody stopped you. What the hell is it? What is so wonderful about what you just did, you know? Well, that's a dinosaur talking.
You're a 1968 Hall of Famer. You're 94 years old as we do this here in August of 2023. You look like you're in terrific shape still. How would you like George Tetter to be remembered by in North Tonawanda football history?
Never thought of it. I don't know. Probably as one who worked hard and took the game very seriously. And appreciate the fact that you're able to do it. That's about it.
Do you have any regrets in your coaching career?
I'm sorry?
Do you have any regrets in your coaching career? Are there things you would do differently?
Yeah. I don't think so. I always had a good grip on what I am, what makes me what I am, for what that's worth. I've always been a modest guy, believe it or not, but I'm not much of a braggart, and I never was. But I'll tell you this one, because one of the best things that ever was said to me. Well, there were two things. Going back to that Syracuse game, I had a great game. I have no idea why, but we played both sides, both ends in those days. And during the course of the game, a couple of the ball guys who were on the team came to me and said, "Your captain, go tell them that these guys are holding us all the time." And so I went to the head referee, and I said, "Sir, my teammates are complaining about being held." And he said, "They aren't holding you, are they?" And I could have jumped for, to me that was a hell of a compliment. And somebody told me this, that Dick Homenheimer, he's gone now, I believe he's dead, but he told somebody that I was the best right guard he ever had, which it kind of surprised me. I never considered myself that great, but I did my share. That's it.
Coach George Tetter, thank you so much. This has been a lot of fun. Thank you for taking a trip down memory lane and coming in. You look terrific. Continued best health to you moving forward. And thanks so much for joining me today.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.